Hello, our amazing listeners of Neurocareers Doing the Impossible. It's your podcast host, Dr. Milena Krastenskaya, or simply Dr. K. And I'm excited to welcome you to the second season of our podcast, exploring entrepreneurial careers in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Have you ever wondered what it takes to transform brain science into groundbreaking products and services? Are you curious about the fearless visionaries who bridge the gap between neuroscience and entrepreneurship to change people's life and reshape our world? Are you ready to explore how to navigate the uncharted waters of neurotech entrepreneurship? In season two, we're diving deep into the world of entrepreneurial ventures in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. If you are looking to create an immediate impact and translate your neuroscience and neurotech ideas into innovative services that truly make a difference in the world, this season is tailor made for you. Join us and learn from the best in the field about succeeding in the entrepreneurial journey in neuroscience and neurotechnology where innovation meets impact. We've got an incredible lineup of guests who are not only shaped their careers, but have also made a profound impact on the field. Throughout this season, we'll explore the captivating stories of visionaries who've risen to the challenge, who've turned obstacles into opportunities, and who've innovated in ways that are changing the landscape of neurocareers. So, whether you are a seasoned professional in the field, an inspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the intersection of science and business in this ever evolving arena, the season promises inspiration, education, and a glimpse into the exciting future of neurocareers. I am Dr. Milena Krastenskaya, the founder of the Institute of Neuroapproaches, where I help people establish successful careers in neuroscience and neurotechnologies through career coaching and education. So let's dive into the entrepreneurial journeys that are shaping the future of neuroscience and neurotechnologies together. Tune in now into the thrilling episode number 62. Welcome, dear listeners, to another enlightening episode of Neurocareers Doing the Impossible podcast. Today, we're delving into the captivating world of innovation, science, and entrepreneurship with our esteemed guest, Dr. Naeem Komeilipoor. With a remarkable background that encompasses neuroscience, biomedical engineering, and AI, Dr. Komeilipoor brings a versatile perspective to the table. His global experiences have further enriched his skill set, making him a true trailblazer in his field. Passionate about empowering humanity, Dr. Komeilipoor has harnessed his expertise to launch startups, including his current venture, AAVAA, which is dedicated to building devices that empower people with disabilities. Through his groundbreaking platform, AAVAA, he is redefining markets spanning from assistive technology and wearables to medical devices. AAVAA's revolutionary technology enables users to effortlessly control their virtual and real environments through subtle gestures like blinks, facial expressions, and head movements. Driven by the infusion of neuroscience, AI, and advanced audio technology, AAVAA's proprietary platform is poised to redefine how we interact with our devices. Beyond his technical prowess, Dr. Komeilipoor's love for the arts and philosophy showcases his holistic approach to life. From composing music to crafting short stories and poetry, his creativity knows no bounds. Join us on this episode of Neurocareers Doing the Impossible as we journey through the intricate pathways of entrepreneurship, neuroscience, and technology with brilliant Dr. Naeem Komeilipoor. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and empowered by his transformative work and passion for creating a brighter future. Welcome, Dr. Komeilipoor. It's a great pleasure to have you today on our podcast. Can you briefly introduce yourself and also let our listeners know where you are joining us from?
Sure. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. So my name is Naeem, and as you mentioned, I'm the founder and CTO of AAVAA. I'm joining you from Montreal, Canada. So I started my studies in electrical and biomedical engineering, and then I moved into movement science, neuroscience, and eventually self-studying and doing projects in AI. And today we are going to talk about my company, AAVAA, which is a Montreal-based company I founded in 2019. And practically the genesis of the project was initially we wanted to solve a cocktail party problem, which is a very known problem in the audio industry. So the problem is all the hearing aids, even today, they fail in noisy environment because they're not intelligent enough to be able to understand what sounds the listeners are paying attention to in a very noisy environment. That's why they usually amplify noise and desired sounds all together. And I somehow grew up experiencing this problem because I grew up with grandparents who were hearing aid users, and I was very well aware of this problem. And talking to my grandma over phone one day was really the motivation and the inspiration. That was the aha moment. I talked to her after many years, and then she was in a small family gathering, and she had problem hearing what I was saying. And that was for me an aha moment that years has passed, although she had a very good hearing aids, but she still has this problem, the so-called cocktail party problem. The solution that I came up with, which, is very simple. There's only one solution to solve this problem which is to understand the attention of the user in noisy environment, to understand what sounds they're paying attention to, where they're facing, where they're looking. When we know this information, we can separate those sound sources, the desired sounds, enhance them, and suppress the rest. That was the genesis of the project. While developing the project, we figured out there are lots of other applications for this technology. Augmented reality, virtual reality. One of the, none of these devices, VR devices, are seamless yet. You still have the handlers. So there is a need for making these devices voice-free, touch-free, hands-free. And our technology can provide this because we decode eye movement, we decode blink. So practically, when we figure out that in addition to, for example, to a degree, not very accurate, decode the auditory attention, we figure out from the same sensors using the same locations, we can decode EOG, electrooculagram, which is the eye movement, or we can decode EMG, electromyogram, the facial gestures. And that was again another aha moment where I figured out, not only we can provide service for, revolutionize the audio industry, but in short term, we can make impact on people's life, people who are suffering from mobility impairment, paralyzed people, quadriplegic, people with spinal cord injury, or cerebral palsy, and so on, because the technology they are using at the moment, they are not user friendly and is not capable of translating their commands into an actionable commands to control their devices. The way we do so We decode the eye movement and facial gestures such as blink, clenching, and so on, using few sensors located in different areas of the head, and we turn them into action. So they can steer their wheelchairs, they can control their smart home devices, they can type, they can, practically control their feeding robots and so on. And we have many form factors. This is our newest form factor, our headband. We have glasses form factor. So this is our glasses form factor. We have virtual reality form factor. We have earbuds and headphone form factors. But all of these devices, they decode attention, they monitor brain signals, facial activity, and eye movement. And at the same time, most of them are also capable of speech enhancement, meaning they have microphones and audio processors, and they're capable of processing audio in real time and feed it back to the user. Sorry, it was a long introduction, but I paused so that you can ask questions.
Yes, thank you so much for your introduction. It sounds very exciting, very interesting. And I would like us to go a little bit back into your past when you decided to start working with neurotechnology and got interested in neuroscience. So what prompted you from being in engineering field to start paying attention to the brain and start specializing in this field?
That's a great question. So I was doing biomedical engineering in Sweden in a university called Chalmers. I was doing image processing, signal processing, and I was practically studying different biomedical instrumentation, and I loved that field. We had a course called Human Anatomy, and for each session, we had a different lecturer, one for heart, one for digestive system, and one we had for nurse for brain. So I remember the lecturer came, he was very cool, and he had the brain in his hand, and he started explaining the brain. And for us engineers, that was like eye-opening because we didn't know anything about that. For me, as an engineer, the brain was a black box, and I didn't even think about it before that time that much. So when he started by saying, this is the most complex object in the universe. And that was for me, very captivating. And after that lecture, I figured out that, you know what, I really want to work at that intersection of biomedical engineering and neuroscience. And that's what I actually started looking for a place to do my master's thesis in neuroscience. And that's how the story went on. And I became more interested in not only the brain, but also human movement, language, music, and so on. But that was the starting point of how I became interested in neuroscience.
Yes, how interesting. Just one lecture can change everything for you, the whole
Exactly.
trajectory of your path, of your
Exactly.
career. Yeah, which is very interesting. Many listeners are asking the same question: how do I proceed from being engineer, biomedical engineer, to neuroscience related work? So what did it take for you? What was your path starting from that neuroscience related master's degree? What did you need to learn? What skills to acquire to start feeling really comfortable in working in neuroscience space?
That's a great question. I think engineers usually, biomedical engineers, those who work with signal, image, they're very well prepared already to do this transition to neuroscience. Because, I remember I went to Trieste in a place where, in CISA, where many people from different backgrounds, all the way from mathematics, physics, engineering, psychology, neuroscience, they were all coming together and studying the brain. And usually engineers can adapt quickly because they have the toolbox. They know how to analyze signals. And the goal is practically to decode the brain. And one way to do so is to look at the images or the brain activity and start using math and physics and artificial intelligence, trying to interpret these activities. And engineers are very well equipped. But what engineers, they're not very good at, they don't know how to experiment. So how to design experiment, how to go after proving their hypotheses, and being creative, coming up with new ideas. So this is a little bit difficult for engineers, this transition. But what I would recommend, just reading papers, reading books, talking to the neuroscientists, understanding how they are going after their questions, how they are testing their hypothesis. So I think overall is a very smooth it could be a smooth transitions for many engineers to move into neuroscience. And that's the beauty of neuroscience, because without these people with different background, we would never know that much about the brain, because psychologists, neuroscientists, they have you know amazing knowledge about the brain, but they don't have the tool to decode the brain. And this collaboration, this synergy between neuroscientists, engineers, mathematicians, and physicists, that's what makes this field very exciting and progressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting to have this input from so many specialists on the same project, and it definitely enriches the experience and makes the product so unique, because it's every time it's a new set of different people working on it with their own ideas and experiences.
Exactly. It's the same here and now in my company. So we have all the way people from chemistry and material science, those who are working on brain sensors, to designers, to hardware engineers, firmware engineers, neuroscientists, machine learning engineers, mathematicians, physics. So really this diversity, it's our strength is this diversity, because this is a very complex problem and you need to attack that from different angles. From one point, the signal is extremely noisy. You need the better sensors. Then you need a very robust and powerful hardware capable of processing this information in real time, real quick. At the same time, you need engineers, signal processing engineers, and artificial intelligence engineers to develop algorithms that clean these signals, removing noise and decoding these signals. So practically, the approach we took to solve our problem was to attack this problem from all different angles. And that's how we are actually moving quicker, because without a good sensor, without a good hardware, without a good algorithm, because there's no off-the-shelf material available. That's the problem. I would have loved that we just stick to the software, but the problem is there is no sensor available. There is no software available, hardware available. So we had to practically build our own sensors. We started off with the off-the-shelf materials, and that's what I recommend to anyone who wants to do entrepreneurship, is starting with whatever is out there off the shelves, downloading codes from GitHub and so on. But at some point, when the project moves on and goes to the next level, you need to, practically go to the next level from different perspectives: sensors, hardware, design, and so on. You need actually good design, because EEG sensors or electroencephalogram sensors needs to be in a very good contact with the skin. So the design is also game changing, in this scenario.
Absolutely. You definitely had an opportunity to go into academia, and there are many people who are still trying to solve cocktail party in their academic work and write a dissertation. Why was this particular choice? Why did you decide to become entrepreneur and actually start building your own products?
That's again a great question. So I actually had this existential crisis at some point in my academic career, that I was feeling the research I'm doing doesn't have huge impact. And I wanted to work on things that could have huge impact and immediate impact on people's life, not purely becoming a scientific paper that people cite. And I started with the previous project. I started with building, and my approach in entrepreneurship is solving really real world problems. So I was my first company, my first startup, I was building robot chatbot for seniors because Canadian seniors, 35% of them are suffering from social isolation and hypertension. So I was working on this project to be able to, you know, develop a chatbot that a robot chatbot that practically can monitor mental and physical health of seniors and connect them to their family and friends. So that was my, that was my gate to entrepreneurship. I used to do some stuff when I was younger, but this was when I knew what I was doing. This was the way that I entered to entrepreneurship. And from there, I was still postdoc at the University of Montreal in an institute called Brahms. And I was at the same time building this I found some team members and we were building prototype for this project. And for the same reason, I wanted to solve a big problem, to have a big impact. Meanwhile, struggling with this problem, building prototypes, I had a problem finding money. In entrepreneurship, the project is just when you start doing things, of course, but in order to scale things up and to build a team and build a prototype, you need money. And as a postdoc, you're broke practically. So meanwhile, I was struggling to raise 2K from here, 5K from another place. So I was reached out by some investors in LinkedIn, and I met the CEO of a venture capital firm here in Montreal. And I met him and he told me, we give you a significant money, like something in the range of 100K to start a new project in your field, neuroscience, audio, artificial intelligence, and so on. And you have 1 month to come up with an idea. So I went back to university. I told my supervisor that's my decision. So I stayed there for a couple of weeks to wrap up the rest of the work that I had. I put my previous project on pause and I started working in this new idea. And again, as I mentioned, because I was familiar with the cocktail party problem because of my grandparents, talking to my grandparents and seeing that after all these years, she's still struggling with the same problem, that was the inspiration for me. I said, this is a real problem. It has not been solved. And I think we can, not completely, but we can partially solve this problem in short term. And that was my approach. Practically, I think when I did this transition from academic to an entrepreneur, I was actually already an academia, also very pragmatic. I learned to be very pragmatic and looking for solutions that can be immediate and they're down to earth. So many people, it's been like 30 years that so many entrepreneurs and neuroscientists trying to decode useful information from EEG. So you can do things when you have 128 electrodes or 64 electrodes with gel electrodes in the lab. You can do things. Still, those research are also, you don't have very robust results. But when you want to build a device using dry electrodes with few sensors, the signal to noise ratio drops drastically. And there are not so many things you could do with that signal. So my approach was, this signal is noisy, extremely noisy. What are the things that make noise? So head movement, eye movement, clenching face, facial movement. Let's interpret those noises. So that's how I look at the problem outside of the box and say, it's very difficult to decode this signal itself to understand what's going on inside the brain, but it's very noisy. So meanwhile, in short term, let's decode the noise. Let's understand the eye movement. So EOG, let's figure out the, facial gestures from these signals. Because we were doing auditory attention decoding, and we started by auditory attention decoding, which is a field in neuroscience, in auditory neuroscience. You have two competing speakers in front of you. For example, one female speakers, one male speakers, each are saying two different scenarios. You have an EEG cap. We are wearing an EEG cap, and you are instructed to listen to one and ignore the other. So the goal of a neuroscientist is to use the EEG input the EEG signal into a neural decoder, a linear model or non-linear model, and output some characteristics of the sound, envelope of the attended sound, or you know, some properties about the frequency of the sounds, or directly say which sounds you're paying attention to. This might be possible if you have 128 electrodes and you can wait for 30 seconds, but still the accuracy is around 80%. Now imagine if you reduce the number of sensors to 3, 4, and those sensors are dry electrodes. And also you have the constraints that you want to decode that within 1 second. So your result really reach out to chance 50-50%. So that's where I figure out, this is not going to be something that we could commercialize anytime soon. Or meanwhile, we are pursuing this research. We need to find some more, immediate signals that can help us solve this problem. And that was using head direction, eye movement, and so on.
Just to make sure that I understand correctly, so you still were recording some information from the brain, correct? And in addition, you were trying to decode facial movement and then hand gestures and other parameters. Is that correct? Or you omitted brain signals?
No, we still work on the brain signal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more long term, we know that it's not going to be, I'm not going to be able to commercialize it soon. Meanwhile, we are now making new collaborations with people who are able to record brain signal with a higher quality. And there we can do a lot, so, and you can decode many things. But using few sensors or one sensor inside the ear is almost like a magic, because you practically say, okay, I have one EEG, extremely noisy EEG signal. It goes to my, magic box, to my neural decoder, and the output is the sound that the person is listening to. That is impossible, So that's why I was realistic, and I, said, although many people were still pushing me, no, we have to go with this. This is what is cool, and so on. I rejected, and I decided, to go pursue a path that result in an immediate impact, faster, more robust, and practically solving the problem partially.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also you chose a non-invasive path. Yes, so you decided not to create a brain chip even in the future. Yes, I understand you have immediate impact goal, but a long-term goal is not a chip in the brain that is being implanted. So why this particular path with the wearable technology, with non-invasive technology?
Exactly for the same reason, because I'm pragmatic. I wanted to build something that people would use that and, would have an impact immediately, because I believe this would be a technology that many people would use it, especially people, I don't see in near future any, any healthy adult would want to have these chips unless they're very futuristic and so on. So, but majority of people are very comfortable wearing a wearable device that is very similar to what they're wearing, almost the same as what they're wearing today, but added, it solves many of their problems. Who, like people with paralysis. So if they just wear an earbuds or a headband, with that headband, they can control everything from their cell phone, laptop, and the smart home devices all at once. Of course, they would love that, and they would prefer that, to having a chip implanted. When you have the chip implanted, of course, when the technology is there, you can do many other things. But in short time, when this technology can already drastically change your life in a good way, you would definitely adopt that compared to invasive chips implanted into your brain. But again, I love those companies. I love Neuralink, the things they are doing. I think is a huge contribution to humanity and neuroscience field as a whole. But that takes time.
Would you consider something like this in the future, not as an immediate impact goal, but possibly future goal, more invasive approaches?
Definitely. Definitely. I would love at some point in my career to work on that as well. But for now, I think we need to, make this happen, bring this into market, make it completely robust, but eventually definitely. I think we will see down the road. Also, many neuroscientists would benefit from this, implanted chips. So the amount of knowledge we could gain about the brain when these chips are available to scientific community would be, it would be amazing, because neuroscientists until today, they have ECOG and, and many other invasive devices, but in terms of resolution, speed, and the locations you could put them, you're always constrained. Imagine now you would have a Neuralink chip, for example, and then you would be able to do all these experiments. And I think is going to be groundbreaking for the whole field eventually, this kind of neural implants. But in short term, to make impact today and solve many problems, I think we took a right approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe let's talk a little bit about this journey. 2019, you got 1 month to submit your pitch, yes, your idea for possible funding. So, can you tell how did that all go, and what happened over the course of these 4 years? What did you achieve?
Sure. So practically, I came up very like I think 1-2 days before the deadline, the presentation. That was the time I talked to my grandma, and all these things happened. So the idea came up to my mind, and I talked to some people in the VC, the venture capital where I was working. I presented, and they liked the project, and they approved the project partially. So now my goal was to go and find the intellectual property. So find patents that could be somehow relevant. I went, I found some patents. I reached out to many professors, talked to them. I had to validate, this technology. So one part was the IP, the intellectual property. Another part was, we call it in business, we call it proof of concept. I had to show a proof of concept. My proof of concept was practically using an off-the-shelf EEG cap and replicating one of these papers with auditory attention decoding. So practically at that time, I was everyone. I was the software engineer, I was a designer. So that was the first proof of concept. Then the other proof of concept, we wanted to see whether we can do that using fewer electrons from around the ear. That was my second proof of concept. And I designed a little model that can have dry electrodes, hostile electrodes, and goes around the ear. And then there I figured out, oh, now there's a problem, because we don't see a good result. It's 60%, 70%. From there onward, we said we need more data. We started testing more, like similar exactly to what the research is done in university academia, with the difference that this research that we were doing was not done in the control conditions. We didn't ask our participants to do not move, do not blink, and so on. And the sound was played through a speaker, not through, you know, earphones. And practically we start building the hardware. So I received the money. I hired also some engineers, and we started actually building the hardware. We have also machine learning engineers with like recording data, building models, and as we continued, there was need for designer. So that's very organically, it became a very multidisciplinary team. And at some point, I needed to again present this for the investors to get the rest of the money. And that happened. I presented, we showcased some of demos, and we graduated from that venture capital, and then we moved out, and we found our own place and raised again money. So practically it's a seed round. We had a pre-seed round and seed round. investment, and we also received many grants. So the Canadian government is very generous, and we have taxes that are a big portion of the taxes that we pay. They give us back, and we have many big grants. And with this, now we have a large team working on different fronts of this technology. We have our first product. The headbands are already in the market. And what we are doing, what's different from in our approach, Melina, compared to other startups or people in this field, we co-creating this product with the end users. I personally go and I sit with the patients, get their feedback, they wear our device, and we immediately, same day, sometimes, with the engineers, we go to the same meeting and then we get the feedback and they're already there, they're writing the code to make the changes. So that's our approach, that we are co-creating this product with the end users. And that's our plan. So now we are sending our development kits, the headband development kits, to large companies, some professors, they ask us samples, and most importantly, to the clinicians and end users, people with mobility impairments, and they're giving us feedback and we're working with them. And meanwhile, we are now completing our glasses, and we have a VR form factor, and we have earbuds that are, in product line right now.
Excellent. And congratulations with the release of your first product of the headband. Can you tell more? What can it do and where it can be used and how?
Sure. The headband, our headband does, it decodes the head movement, facial gestures such as blink, clench, and some other customized gestures, and also eye movement. And this can be connected, it's a Bluetooth device, and it can be connected to the laptops, cell phones, and smart home devices. And practically with this, people with mobility impairment, those who still have control over their eye and some subtle facial gestures, they can control their devices using our headband. Imagine, for example, just moving your eye or head and looking at the light, moving your head and blinking and turn the light on. Or looking at your laptop, you can navigate your Google Chrome and your practically, I can navigate the internet again using our device. And that's where we are commercializing it today. And at the same time, it can be used for gamers, developers, so they can build their games on top of that. Neuroscientists from different field has reached out to us. So someone asking me whether I can use it for sleep monitoring. Of course we can. Someone else asking for, we want to test that for, continuous health monitoring of some patients that we have, or in ICU. So many people with different applications in mind have reached out to us, and sometimes we are learning actually that, oh, this can have different application. So because the fact that we allow users to have access to the raw data, they can, even using our software, they can even design their own experiment. This is great for neuroscientists. You can design your own experiment, and you have an access to our raw data. We have an APIs where you can actually deploy your own model in real time. We have even annotation software. You can clean your data if you want. So that's a full package that we put it out there right now. And we have few samples, new samples are coming up, but for now we're sending it to limited partners.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we can paint a picture for our listeners so that they can imagine it better. Let's say you are entering a room wearing that headband. What can you do? What happens if it is connected?
So let's make it actually this way. So a person with a wheelchair can enter to the room, steering their wheelchair already using our device. Because of they can use their eye movement, blinking, and other gestures and head movement for steering the wheelchair. When they enter to the room, let's say this is in a smart home, they can just look at the light, blink, turn it on. They can look back to the curtains and pull it up. And at the same time, it's connected to their cell phone and their computers. So they can type, they can navigate the web. So practically we are solving we're building a device that facilitates many cumbersome interactions with their devices. So it allows a very seamless interaction with all their devices that they're using during their daily activities.
Mhm. And how is this device different from what currently exists on the market? What becomes possible with this particular device that is not possible with other ones?
Again, this is a great question. So there are now eye tracking devices that are available. So you need a camera, infrared camera, a normal camera. They have lots of limitations. They track eye. Some of them, they track the eye very well, but usually they cannot track the eye outdoor. They are not very good when you have a smaller eyes or inset eyes sometimes. If you blink and you open your eyes, sometimes the calibration is gone. Again, our device doesn't need any calibration, it's off the shelves. You wear that and it was work out of the box. Another problem that they have, the eye tracking device, you always need to sit in front of the camera all the time. Where our device, because you have practically your camera always with you, you know, as a headband, which is not a camera, but the device that can decode your gaze, you don't have none of these problems. And some other problems that people, let's say when it comes to facial gesture blink, eye tracking devices, as far as I know, and the ones that I've seen, they're not capable of understanding the difference between intentional and unintentional blink so that they could use it as a command, while our device does that. Another limitation is that there are many assistive technology devices available out there, but they connect to the laptop. But they, at the same time, you cannot connect them to your smart home devices. Our device has this capability to be connected at the same time to multiple devices and control many devices at the same time. Or, the first version of it now, of course, a few of them, but eventually will be connected to all the devices. These are the problems that we are solving and the existing technologies are not solving. Again, when you go out there under the sun with your family, with your wheelchair, these devices, they don't work, the eye tracking devices, in darkness, These are the problems that exist and we are solving them seamlessly.
Yes, so it's a wearable device that is not connected with the wires to anything else. You just can use it anywhere, at any place, basically, and integrate it to work with various other devices.
Exactly. And it's independent of your eye size and ethnicity and so on.
Okay, beautiful. And what do you think was the main reason that people made the decision to fund this project? What did they see in it that was so appealing that they wanted to support it?
So practically at the beginning, usually that's what investors they say. They say we invest in the entrepreneur. They want to see you passionate about solving that problem. But I think what's the main reason why people like this project is that I want to do good. And that's my goal. That's my motivation. I want to enable humanity. I want to do good and I want to solve this real problem that exists. And people understand because I always tell my fellow entrepreneurs or peers who wants to start business or who wants to start this entrepreneurship journey, I tell them the most important things before you start is that you understand why you want to become an entrepreneur. For me, the best reason and the only reason people need to should go through this entrepreneurship journey is to do good, to make positive impact on society. First thing. Second things, you need to identify problems that are there and the real problems, and people are desperate for finding their solution. They're desperate for their solution. And if you find those problems that are there, and many people are desperate for their solution, and you start attacking those problems, using the technology, you always succeed. Some scientists, some engineers, they fall in love with the technology. They fall in love with their signal processing, with their mathematics. But a real entrepreneur fall in love with the problem. You're really passionate. You have a connection to that problem, and you're really passionate. And you want to solve that problem badly, and people see that. And the investors see that. Your employees see that. Everyone at the government agency that wants to give you the grant see that, and that's how you can get lots of support. When you hire someone to solve this, to say, "Oh, we want to solve this problem," they all feel responsible. They all feel this is my project as well, and everyone wants to contribute to solving the problem. But if your goal is just to become a millionaire and you have power, become famous, and so on, you may succeed, but I don't think you would be receiving that much support, or eventually, the the footprint that you leave would be different from the footprint that you leave when you want to really solve big problems for the good cause.
Yes, and here is my next question related to that. You said that your search for immediate and started with your existential crisis, where you felt that you are not doing something that can really make a difference, yes, in the world. So when on this journey in entrepreneurship, you started feeling that yes, it's finally happening. I am making an impact. I feel good.
So as soon as I felt academia, I felt that, now I'm free again. I'm a free spirit. I am moving. Of course, entrepreneurship has many other challenges. You need to deal with investors. It has many, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But overall, you have internal dynamic competitors and money. You don't have money. Where should I get the money and so on? But all in all, because you know that you have the problem, as soon as you identify the problem, you have this feeling that, I am working towards solving this problem, and you feel flourished. You feel like I'm doing something useful. That's a great feeling to have. I had that in academia, but at some point I was really like, you work on a paper for 2 years and you send it to your supervisor, get back. I mean, 2 years is a lifetime of a startup, of changing people's life in real world. So these are the things that made me really disappointed. We can write paper every day in my company because we do experiment. But we move on. We don't wait to publish that, and you go and then the reviewers send you back, and then you go to fish for p-values, you know, less than 0.05. Here we say we are working on the things that work and work today. If it doesn't work, we change something and so dual publication is great, but the way the things are practiced today in academia are completely wrong. The way supervisors are dealing with their students are completely wrong. They don't have freedom. So many things in academia are wrong. So that's why I'm very happy I left academia. And I think there are many academics that they have very good practices still today. But if you're listening and you see that you're having the same problems that I was facing at that time, you may want to go and explore a little bit industry as well. Again, industry has many other disadvantages, but at least most people are pragmatic. They're there to solve real problems, and that's a good feeling. Sorry, I know you are also academic. Please don't get offended.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's why I started my own also practice. I help people establish careers in neuroscience, neurotechnologies, because I was missing that impact as well. So I understand you very well.
That's great.
You mentioned about some problems in academia, which I think many people would agree. How would you want to see academia ideally, having already this experience in academia and in industry, in entrepreneurship?
I would want first the supervisor dealing with the students, like they're also humans, like postdocs. These people are really knowledgeable and they're underpaid. You pay them 30. We pay like interns the money that we pay to the someone that doesn't have bachelor that we pay with postdocs, and these people work every day, weekends, nights, and so on, and then they have to wait for a single publication for 2 years, and there's no professorship after postdoc. There's no professorship. I was hearing that there are like 22% of these people get professorship, and sometimes it doesn't matter really what's your academic background, what papers or research you have done. It matters who you know and who gonna write your recommendation letter. I witnessed firsthand in my faculty, there was a position, someone using TMS. It was me and someone else that we have done lots of research on TMS. There was another person who never used a TMS, but he was French, and they were looking for, French speakers, and they selected him. The day before exam, he was asking me, "Can you send me literature review papers that talks about TMS?" We were not even invited for an interview, but a person who didn't have any knowledge about that whole field was selected. So I think it's not fair. There's this big mafia going on in academia. Sorry, I'm very direct and no filter, no politically correct. There's this big mafia in academia everywhere. I have lived in many countries. There's this big mafia in academia. If you are an independent person, if you are a free spirit, they don't like you. They like people who say yes, and you need to have connection. If you have still many good professors, I have seen them, but still many professors, they don't make a recommendation. They don't make the effort to go and find positions for their students, because I think it's the responsibility of the professor. If you have a postdoc that works for you for 5 years, put all those best years of their life working day and night for you, and you're not gonna go after finding positions for them, talking to people, promoting them, you're not doing your job. It's just you're just taking advantage of the system. So that's what I would like to see. The publication, the whole pressure on the publication, especially in neuroscience, with all this research that's coming out only because these people need to publish, PhD students and postdocs needs to publish. Working on more, of course, you still need to do basic science, but you need to be grounded in reality. People work on solving some problems that don't make sense. I don't know how did they get this money from grant agencies. Like, you need to be grounded in reality. That's what I think need to happen especially for this field. Grounded in reality. People need to accept negative results. So I had this experience. I couldn't replicate it in paper, or someone else might not, many people. But I think at some point, people need to be able to publish results with negative results. I did this research. I tested 90 people, 50 people, and I couldn't replicate the previous result, or I couldn't actually find anything. Many countries, I know Netherlands, I did my PhD in Netherlands, they have initiatives that support scientists to publish negative results, or they actually replicate. And practically, I think collaboration with the industry would be very valuable for fields like neuroscience that now becomes an industry itself. I think there are many things that needs to be fixed in academia, but again, sorry for the long answer. These are the few things. If it's supporting, professors needs to support the students more, being less cruel toward the students. Tell them you need a work-life balance. I tell all of my employees, don't work after work, don't work weekends, and don't bother me either. So just everyone needs to leave. And the same for postdocs. I was hearing from my supervisor, no, if you want academia, you need to work weekends. No, you shouldn't work weekends. Some also entrepreneurs say this, you need to work 70 hours per week and day and night. You need to work hard. I know you need to work hard, but you need to have work-life balance. You need to take time off with your family, friends, go to nature, and do nothing sometimes. And that's these pressures in academia are, making all these people depressed and suppressed. And that's very bad because they're the most intelligent people that we have in the society, but they're being wasted in academia.
Yeah, that's true. There are many challenges in academia, but let's hope that it will be changing because I see more and more students choosing a path into the industry, which leaves less people in academia, and probably it will prompt people who are creating different paths and opportunities for people in academia to change the way how everything is handled. So hopefully we will see changes soon as well. So yeah, but thank you. That was really very insightful. And of course, like you said, entrepreneurship has lots of challenges as well. You need to trust yourself. You are really responsible for so many people who are working with you. So there are many things that you need to take care of, to make decisions. What was the most challenging part for you when developing this your first project, let's say starting from the time you submitted the proposal in 2019 until now? So what was the biggest challenge and how did you solve it?
So practically, as you mentioned, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster of emotion. You are one day up, one day down, and very challenging. Especially the first few years are extremely challenging. I was lucky because I managed to get the first investment. It has a compromise, of you get this money, what but overall, I was lucky because for my second project, I managed to get that money. So one of the most challenging part of the startup is people believing in you know. So, but as you mentioned, you need to believe in yourself. As I have the capacity of myself and with my team solve this problem. And you need to believe in the vision and the problem, solving the problem. These are very important because if it's very tough, every day you would say, this is my last, I would give up today. You need to really badly want to solve that problem. So, and it's a very difficult, I think it's one of the most difficult jobs, at least again, before you have your first product and things start work, because you're always under attack. Oh, this doesn't work. And so main challenges when you build deep tech startups like this is actually first at the beginning is making the technology work. And again, being pragmatic and figuring out what are the priorities, where can I go, what's my low-hanging fruit, where I can actually build something, make something, and get feedback, give it to people, get feedback from them, or sell it. So finding that low-hanging fruit takes time, and you need to really meditate and just reflect a lot to figure out what's that low-hanging fruit for me. Then apart from that, again, raising money, that's very difficult. Building team. Most of us, when you're researchers, scientists, you may have had, few students to manage, then you will have a large team. How to manage a large team. And there are competition out there. Some larger company wants to abuse you, come after you, talk to you, get your ideas, nothing happens. So many challenges. At the beginning, the main challenge is to convince people to be on board with you, because everyone has said, oh, this is a big problem. So why do you think you can solve this problem? Convincing them that you are the person. And raising money, that's very difficult. Unfortunately, that's very difficult, but that shouldn't scare people. Like in countries like Canada, there are lots of resources available, grants and so on. And you always need to start small. Yeah, I think, and it is still challenging. So I don't think we are done. It's still every day there are lots of challenges. And as an entrepreneur, as a startup, every day your job is to solve the existing problem. Your job is solving a problem. So you wake up, you go to work, there are problems. So how should we solve this problem? How should we solve that problem? Like everything is a problem. So you need to have this kind of practically personality that you would be willing to be versatile and, don't get nervous and trying to see problems in the most simplistic way and solving them pragmatically. It's starting with the simplest solutions and then just, building up and solving the full problem gradually.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning all that. And you mentioned that it's important to stay calm when all those problems start piling up. I feel this calmness in you in general. So, the way you speak, the way you communicate, how did you learn to be calm, to be able to handle situations in more or less calm way? What helped you?
Thank you very much. So people tell me that I look like Zen and very calm, but like really inside my brain, it's a washing machine. So I'm not completely successful. I'm always working on myself to improve things. And I am very self-conscious about it. But I am becoming better and better to handle situations more calmly. Don't be impulsive. And I read a lot. I reflect a lot. I think that's very important, no matter whatever job you do and whoever you are. In this age where we are bombarded by information every day, and it's everything about there's social networking, Instagram, TikTok, and so on. So we are always our brain and mind is always bombarded with information and dopamine release, and we don't have time to reflect on our past, the things that happening around us, ourselves, our values. So at some point you need to figure out, there are things that I am not good, I don't handle them good. I have to improve them. Of course, you cannot, it's not an immediate change, but you do that. And one thing is for me is now I'm trying more and more to be calm in terms of when problems arises. So to be able to systematically, to be wise and make the best decision and being able to sometimes let go, you need to be able to let go your personal interest, ego, and so on, to be able to make good decisions for the organization and staying calm and, being sometimes you need to be diplomatic. And, I think this takes reflection and practically reading books, listening to people who have made these changes and, practicing it in real life. Again, you need to be pragmatic. It's nothing is a theory. You said that I love philosophy. I really like philosophy, but I love the philosophy that I can use it in my everyday life. I like philosophers who are pragmatic, who are to the point, grounded in reality, and they talk about things that can be used by individual to solve their problems. And again, in life, I think this is at least my approach, that if I learn something, I would put it into practice. I'll give you an example. Stress is what killing all of us, you know, being driving or, being in a supermarket, waiting on a long, queue. All of us get stressed and anxious. This is not a wise thing to do. The wise thing to do is to say, this is what it is. Now, how can I make the best out of this situation? You're driving, you're waiting on you know, you're waiting for the green light. This is not under your control. If you get stressed and anxious, this is not wise and you're just harming your body and physiology, and that causes cancer and all this. Being able and being mindful and the fact that you don't have any control there, and your task to be calm and make the best decisions, and practicing it in real life. You want to take elevators, someone could have pushed the button that you got it into elevator, but didn't, and you get upset. This is not wise. Again, you need every day when you wake up, you need to know that there are these things around you that are happening and you cannot control them. Your task is to practically try to stay wise and calm and make the best out of the situations. And it's a win-win situation, doing good, you know. Yeah, I guess it needs practice, and I haven't accomplished yet, and I don't think I would never accomplish it, but at least I'm trying.
Absolutely. Just making small steps, small improvements, but it works over time. Maybe you can share some books that help you connect you with everyday things that are helpful for you.
Sure. So, for example, in order for, discussing of things that are under your control or not. So, one of the books that helped me was like a book written by ancient Roman emperor called Marcus Aurelius, some meditations. So that was for me. I read that many years ago. I'm not an stoic, you know, let's say it's not my main interest, but that book was really good for me because you could see that an emperor who has all this responsibility, he was like almost the emperor of the whole civilized world at that time. And he had all these struggles to stay calm, to be good, to do good, and so on. So that was for me, it's a very short book. That's one of my favorite books. And I used to listen to many TED Talks and, read biographies of people that I love. And this is how I get inspiration. Or you need to have, this is very important, I guess, in entrepreneurship, again, in any job. You need to have some few role models, that you can say, what would X do if he was in this situation? So having role models, and you need to stalk people, entrepreneurs or scientists, those people that you love, you need to go and see where do they come from? How did they make these transitions? And how do they see the world? And how do they react to the world? And so on and so forth. You have to study, you have to be systematic and study people. At the end of the day, maybe you would be a role model sometime, but I think that having a role model and studying people you love and you think they made big changes in this world, it helps you to navigate the complexity of this world a little bit at ease because you can get inspiration from them. And you always, sometimes even myself, I still ask myself what that person would do if was in this situation. And most of the time I get a good answer.
Yes, absolutely. It just very often brings us from that place where we are stuck to see what else is available, how somebody else would do it, and somebody else who has success in doing things. Yes, so it just gets us out of this state to see somewhere else. Maybe you can mention some people who really inspire you, who are you looking up to when you are working or trying to solve problems.
Some of them are not really known. Some entrepreneurs that are successful now and they're moving, And sometimes I learn actually. I learn not in a good way, but also I I see they are doing mistakes and it's the good lessons. People that I really love and they do mistake and I figure out, oh, I shouldn't do this mistake. For example, I love Elon Musk, but and I love the visions and the contribution he has to in humanity. But if I agree with whatever he does, I don't. But scientists throughout the history, I love many scientists throughout the history, and I think there are lots of materials in the history and past that we could actually come and practically reformulate them again, read them and reformulate them. Sometimes we let go the whole past. So I love many scientists from past, philosophers, scientists, historians, artists, and these are my inspiration, but it's not one unique person really, but yeah, many people that are still like many young people who are doing entrepreneurship, they're my inspiration these days. That's not necessarily famous, but again, as I mentioned, you need to follow these people, you need to appreciate what they do, and at the same time, being able to criticize them, not making hero out of anyone. Practically, I don't have anyone that I think did everything correctly. Even that person, Marcus, that I mentioned, that I used to like him when I was younger, and I thought he was a great emperor. I have some criticism, So you need to be able to have this mentality to not only criticize your own values, but also the values of the whole society and the community you live. in a good way. And yeah, in order to overcome yourself and overcome the wrong values that we are all facing, throughout because of our family, culture, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. To keep that critical mindset, which is very important. And right now we have this boom of innovations with AI, language models, and different ways we can use them. Is there anything in this new technological development that inspires you in your work in terms of technology development?
I'm very excited. I think we are very lucky. People who are working in this field, we are very lucky with what's going on right now because it's literally a revolution that is happening. I'm very excited. I'm just following what's going on. I think the large language models are just a small part of that. I am very interested in different parts of, there's different movements that happen. Supercomputing from one side, revolution in the artificial intelligence. So these language models that start getting a little bit, conscious or in a way, having artificial, human level artificial. They are not there yet, but you see a glimpse of human level artificial intelligence. These are very exciting, and that's what inspires me. And there are so many ideas that people can pursue right now. This is the time to leverage the AI. And unfortunately, sometimes there is this hype. Everyone focus on one part of this technology, but many great things are happening. Many fronts: hardware, material science, nanomaterials. Like, I think we are at the age that the convergence of these fields, the next big thing that will happen is at the borderline as the convergence of many fields, like similar to what happened a decade ago for an artificial intelligence. You had this hardwares with amazing computational power, with neural networks and the huge data sets. So they all came together, and then you had this, revolution happen. I think you'll see that more and more: supercomputers, quantum computers, when we are able to do things, computations at the edge on the hardware level, in big scales. And so there we'll see the real revolution, which I think we are like less than a decade away from that.
Yeah. How do you see the field of neurotechnology, let's say 50 or 100 years from now?
It's very, it's very difficult to say what would happen in next 10 years, but I would say I'm very satisfied with the things happening in both non-invasive neurotechnology. So being able to tap into the brain mechanism non-invasively. So the FNIRS, I think, the FNIRS or technologies similar to FNIRS, these are very promising. The kind of technology, of course, we are working, this is going to just improve more and more. The invasive ones, like the fact that Neuralink already have the neurosurgeons and this chip, again, that would be, we will know a lot about different functions, auditory functions, vision, tactile, and so on, because of these powerful chips. But from what, I mean, of course, it sounds a bit like science fiction, but I think we would be able to simulate the whole brain in the next 50 years or 100 years. And that's where the real breakthrough comes, when you would be able to simulate billions of neurons and the way they interact and the way the information is being processed in a virtual environment. And there you can actually simulate the disease, and then you can, find the solution, find the cures for the disease, and so on. We would be able to do head transplants for sure in 100 years. And we would have human level artificial intelligence for sure. Some people are fused with this human level artificial intelligence, and they're super, not the superhuman, but they're a real cyborg. And it sounds scary, but I don't think that's where humanity goes. I think we would still be human. Not all of us would have these chips, but again, that's why it's important that as this technology develops, we need to also talk about the ethical concerns around this technology, because you don't want some few people have access to this kind of technology, and so that they would be extremely productive and superhuman like, and then the rest of us will not have an access to this technology and is still struggling for our everyday lives. But practically, I think the big things that I see is that we would be able to simulate the whole brain in a virtual environment. So, and then we would simulate everything from the way that the data is processed and so on. There are still so many mysteries, but I guess compared to what's going on, the knowledge we have today is going to be completely, it will change many things that with many fundamental knowledge that we have about the brain would be changed.
Thank you for this very exciting picture, I would say, of the future. And where do you see your company, your product in all this technological development in the future?
So I think we would, we would enter to many markets. We'll make an impact and we'll enter to many markets. We started with assistive technology and powerless people. Next is going to be hearables and consumer electronic, augmented reality, virtual reality. I think we will have our technology will have a huge impact on everyday life of everyone. So I think everyone from a healthy individual down the road would wear one of our devices or devices that are working in the same way to interact with their environment for health monitoring, and is going to be practically similar to our normal earbuds. Very soon we will have BCI earbuds, BCI glasses, and augmented reality glasses, and everyone get used to having these devices and being able to communicate with their devices. Because the problem is that until today, our relationship with machines is one way. We always try to make our machines understand us. There will be a time where there's this human machine collaboration and understanding. We understand our machines, but our machines also understand our needs and are able to practically enable us to interact with them very seamlessly. Now we are using eye gaze and gestures and so on. At some point, you would be actually able to use your real thoughts to control devices. Not soon, but it will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where we're heading in general. And in order to work in this field as it develops with all these innovations, what do you think would be the main skills for people who want to contribute to the field, who want to work in this field? If they're young students still and they're thinking about this future, what would you recommend for them to really focus and really well develop?
So the good news is that, again, because it's very multidisciplinary and multifaceted, people can come from different backgrounds. So depends on where they see they can make the best contribution. For example, if you are a chemist or material scientist, you could work on the synthesizing powerful sensors. If you're a psychologist, neuroscientist, you could help with testing people, designing experiments, and so on. If you're a mathematician, physician, and engineer, biomedical engineer, electrical engineer, machine learning engineer, mechanical engineer, you can help with building the actual algorithms to decode the brain activity. Again, if you're a mechanical designer, industrial designer, you can contribute in designing devices that are ergonomic and result in high signal to noise ratio. So many people from, many different backgrounds can join this revolution and make huge contribution. What I would say, they just need to follow if they want to navigate their path to enter into this industry, they can start just watching, YouTube video, reading tutorials and so on. But the most important thing is that you learn when you do projects. So go and do project with the startups, do internship, just understand the ecosystem, you know, and it should start from there. Like many people, many again scientists, engineers, they're very perfectionist. They want to study for years and years before they enter into the industry. But my recommendation, humble recommendation, would be jump into the industry if you want right away. Do your studies, but start, get your hand dirty, work as an intern. Sometimes they pay you. If they don't pay you, still try to, do gain some experience, and at least you understand whether you like the field or not. We pay everyone, but there are some people that, accept interns and they don't pay, but you gain the knowledge. So it started right away. That's why main before going and gaining all this knowledge, which is great, but start right away because you learn by doing things.
Absolutely. And what are you looking in your potential employees? What skills? How do you decide? Do you want to employ a person or not?
To be honest with you, after these years and interviewing more than 1,000 people, I go for personality. I really go for personality because I hire young people and then they can learn. They have to have the basic, but I go really with the personality. Apart from personality, so they have to have some knowledge. So if I am hiring an engineer, machine learning engineer, they have to be able to implement some, classical machine learning algorithms, some deep neural networks. They should have some sort of GitHub or codes that I can see and see how they write codes and what was the result. If they're industrial designers, they should have portfolio of the things they have done previously, the designs they have made. If they're electrical engineers, they should have some PCBs that they have worked with. Again, for me, because I see so many people can grow quickly in startups and you can make your way up real quickly if you're. So I go first for the personality. They have to have basics, but I rather go for personality because you're like a family and you want to bring people who work in harmony with the rest and they're not troublesome. So again, that's my recommendation for engineers. Don't go for the genius who is crazy, but go for a nice person who is intermediate, but you see that they are interested and they should be passionate. Again, I like hiring people who see this problem as a personal problem and they're passionate about it. I don't want them to work more than the hours they have to spend in the office, but and I want them to actually. Sometimes I tell my employees, "Oh, your eyes is red. Go home. You got to rest." So again, don't think working hard, working many hours would satisfy your boss. Some boss does, but for me, you need to have a work-life balance and good personality. You know, we are human. You cannot expect people that all the time be productive the same way and so on. So you need to accept it. But again, if they're interested, you didn't need to push people. You just articulate the vision and they make things happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And if some of our listeners want to learn more about what you're doing, what is the best way to contact you if they have questions?
Sure. So our website is www.aavaa.com, which is AAVAA. So they can go and visit our website, see our activities, and we have also job ads there, demos, and so on. You can also take a look if you want to purchase our device and so on. And my email is Naeem, Naeem, at aavaa.com, AAVAA.com. If you're an engineer, scientist, or an entrepreneur that find this problem exciting, please reach out and we would be glad to hear from you and have you in our team.
Thank you so much. And this information will be added to our podcast notes so that our listeners can read and check it out and also contact you. So thank you very much. And one question I didn't ask, what does it mean, AAVAA, the name of your company?
Sure. So AAVAA is a very ancient word that has roots in many cultures. So I'm Iranian, so my I speak Persian. In Persian, it means sound, melody, voice, harmony. In Latin, it's Elva, the Genesis. So, and then in Hebrew, it means love, ahava. So it has roots in Finnish, it has roots in Latin, in many languages, and it's a female name. So I wanted to choose a name that really has resonate with people from many backgrounds, and it has a little bit mystic, you know, spirit to it, and practically, it has to do things with sound. In German, it means bird-like, as far as I know. Again, in Persian, it has to do with sound, and many other languages that has things to do with Genesis and so on.
Yeah, that's a beautiful name.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as we're nearing the end of our podcast, is there anything you want to mention to our listeners, to share anything before we end?
I think I have said enough, but what I would really recommend is that if you have a dream of becoming an entrepreneur or any other dreams, don't play around with that. Just be pragmatic. Start doing it right away, today. That's my only recommendation. The more you play around with ideas and dreams, the further they go. So start right away, pursue your dreams. And there are many people. Don't hesitate to reach out to people. There are many good people around. People are there. There are so many godmothers, godfathers that are there. They want to help people. You just need to reach out. Sometimes we don't reach out. So reach out to people and start doing things today. So that's it.
That's a great advice. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being such a wonderful podcast guest.
Thank you, ma'am. My pleasure. It was a pleasure.
So many insights. And of course, I wish you and your company all possible success.
Thank you very much, Melina. It was a pleasure meeting you. Bye-bye.
Dear NeuroCareers podcast listeners, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the entrepreneurial world of neuroscience and neurotechnologies. I hope you've been inspired by the stories of those who are turning groundbreaking ideas into impactful realities. If you are looking for more guidance on succeeding in NeuroCareers, book a free consultation with me, your podcast host, Dr. K, at the Institute of Neuroapproaches. So, what are you waiting for? Let's navigate the path to success in the world of NeuroCareers and make the impossible possible together.